to In the Blue Corner channel, and this is Vince Loccisano wishing you a very warm welcome. And this is Stephen Khatib doing the same. Good evening to you, Stevie.
Good evening, Vince.
Oh, what happened there? I'm having a few issues here tonight. Anyway, we apologise for the slightly late start. I think we're a couple of minutes late, but we got there. And, well, I guess first things first, we should acknowledge the fantastic performance by our boys against Adelaide today at Marvel Stadium. A 8-goal victory in the end, but could have been a bit more. I guess we got up to about 11 goals in front at one stage, but I think we might have taken our foot off the pedal a bit in the last quarter and coasted home, and they got a few easy ones towards the end. But overall, I'd have to say it was a very comprehensive performance, very impressive. When the game was there to be won, we really turned it on tonight.
Yeah, it was a four-quarter effort, more than any game we've had this year. So certainly pleasing from that effect. A good win for percentage as well that we certainly need.
Yeah, we've come up about 7 points. In fact, I think we went from 95 to 104 last week, and now from 104 up to about 111 or thereabouts this week. So two very similar margins from one week to the next. I think it was 50 points against North Melbourne and 48 against Adelaide. So essentially 2 8-goal victories, and you wouldn't complain about that if that was achievable every week, would you?
No, I mean, whether it's achievable every week's another story, though. With all due respect, the opposition probably is not that of some of the other teams in the competition. So,
sure.
We need to keep things in perspective. However, you can only beat who you're playing against.
Absolutely. Well, I guess a few people, including myself, thought that Adelaide would come out buzzing this week. They were basically embarrassed at home last week against GWS, and then GWS were embarrassed this week against Geelong. So it's hard to read the form, isn't it? But I thought that Adelaide might have put up a better performance for the entire game. But they got off to a flying start. I think they kicked the first couple of goals. But, after that, I think Carlton really hit top gear and started to dominate after that. All the way up to three-quarter time, I thought we were absolutely flying.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Really, Adelaide didn't have any patches of dominance at all in the game, and I'd certainly suggest that the way Carlton played, there's been question marks over them being able to sustain an effort across the game, and today that was different.
Well, by the way, out there, all of our viewers, if you'd like to be part of tonight's program, by all means, send us your comments or ask a question if you like, or provide your opinions. You can do that in one of a couple of ways, either through our Facebook page, In the Blue Corner, and post your comments there, or otherwise on our YouTube channel of the same name, In the Blue Corner. So if you go to YouTube now, you'll see the show being broadcast live. So we're very keen to hear from you and know what you think. So please do so. All right. Well, I think it's got to be said that Patrick Cripps yet again, 35 possessions, 19 contested possessions. I think it was 9 clearances and 2 goals. He's kicking goals pretty much every week. He's got to be in Brownlow favouritism at the moment, I would have thought. I know it's only 8 weeks in, but, geez, he's had to have polled at least 6 times so far out of 8 games.
I would agree, and he's a player that would be able to get the umpire's eye as well. More importantly, I would think that, Cripps has, changed, as you said, changed his game to that dimension where he can actually now kick goals. Opposed to being a permanent forward, but a player that kicks goals from the midfield, opposed to a resting forward. And that's adds the variety and options to the team. More importantly, adds more to his bow as well, more strings to his bow as a player. and that's great. That's the real plus for me.
I mean, look, I recall when he was only, I think, a 20-year-old, and he won his first best and fairest in 2015. That was a very disappointing wooden spoon year. Then he won his next best and fairest and another wooden spoon year of 2018. He won his third one the year after in 2019. We only marginally went up the ladder that year. But this time, I think, because of the goal kicking that he's also added to his game, I think he's in absolutely career best form, Patrick Cripps. He's absolutely flying at the moment. You couldn't ask for more from your captain.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I would agree with you. There isn't really anything more that you can ask from him. He's just been fantastic, and probably also been great around the club in influencing some of the other players, although we don't always see that. But that's something that no doubt he will be involved in. And we've got an interesting comment here from Glenn O'Donnell. Carlton haven't had a dominant player in Cripps since Cooter and Judd.
Haven't had such a dominant player, that's probably right. That's probably a fair comment. I think Walsh was pretty much in that category last year, but that was only the 1 year. And I think, Cooter and Judd did it for quite a number of seasons. And I think Cripps is now in that bracket where he has performed to that level in at least, 4 seasons now. So, he's maturing. He's 27 now and really showing those leadership qualities. Also, fantastic to see Charlie Curnow back to his absolute best form. Another 6 goals tonight. And, over 20 possessions. Together with Harry Mackay, they're becoming the 2 twin towers that are very hard to stop for the opposition.
Agreed. Curnow being, getting his body right now has certainly helped him a lot. It's still a long season, though. Let's just hope he can stay fit and healthy on the field. But if he does, he adds that extra dimension where teams have now got to work out how they want to match up against players. And do they want to put more work into Curnow, or do they want to put more work into Mackay? And then as a team, how do we want to play? Do we want to play more through one or the other? Or if one's having a poor day, we've still got maybe the other as an option. So they're all great problems to
have. The opposition working out how to play those two is a bit like saying, do I want a headache at the front of my head, or do I want it at the back of my head? Or
look, it's all about supply.
I mean, Harry and Charlie would be a headache to most opposition coaches.
It's all about supply, though, right? At the end of the day, they can that as good as they can be, and we saw it a few weeks ago. If the ball was kicked against Fremantle, if the ball's kicked on the not kicked correctly to the forwards, and there's no pressure on the midfield, well, it makes it really difficult. However,
absolutely,
with our midfield performing so well across the lines, the pressure's off the defenders, and now the forwards have got a picnic.
Yeah, I was very impressed tonight with how we pressured the ball carrier when we didn't have the ball. Adelaide seemed to be rushed at every turn. Every time they had the ball, they were put under pressure, so that creates turnovers, and we were good enough to take advantage of those. They must have felt like there was someone ready to tackle them as soon as they grabbed the ball tonight, because it really did happen like that. They were very heavily pressured all the way through.
Absolutely, and that's a lot of work, right? It's all about when you don't have the football, what are you doing? You've only got the football for at most a minute in a game. So what are you doing when you don't have it? And that's exactly right.
Well, certainly a lot of scoring shots. Do you know how many inside 50s we had tonight?
No.
A record equaling 74. That is an amazing amount of inside 50s. I mean, when you think about that, it's amazing we didn't kick 25 or 30 goals. I mean, 74 times the ball goes inside 50. I mean, that's just heaven for the forwards to have the ball coming in that often.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. And not just coming in, but coming in with obviously less pressure, because when it's cleared out by the defenders hurriedly, it's coming straight back in very easily for the forwards to mark as well.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, look, it's been really, it was a really good performance.
Yes, I've got to also say I was very pleased to see that it wasn't just Harry and Charlie. Jack Silvani chipped in for a couple of goals in a row at one stage, including a really nice goal on the outside of his boot, which he kicked very high, as a matter of fact. He wasn't that far out. He was probably only about 15 or 20 metres out, but to get the ball to spin the way he needed to, he kicked it really high, and it gave the ball enough scope to do that. It was very clever, I thought. And also Zach Fisher kicking a couple of goals in a row also, predominantly in that third quarter. So, those guys were very impressive. And even those two small forwards in Owies and Durden, they continue to pressure the defenders of the opposition, and that really does create a lot of turnover opportunities for us.
Yeah. Oh, look, that's the depth that we need, right? Now, when we haven't won, those people have gone missing, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I couldn't find a weak player on the ground. I really could not find one player that you would say, he had a shocker. I think we all played really well, really good football. And, even Kennedy kicked a beautiful goal. It just, everything seemed to click tonight. We've got another comment up there.
Yeah.
That's our friend Goz. All jokes aside. Oh, really? I didn't know we were joking. Lockie O'Brien's crack at a goal and hit the post. Can anyone see that when he marked the ball and when he hit the post, his face told a touching story? It got me. Or is it just me on that call? I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Goz. I'm a bit confused on that one. But anyway, maybe someone else might be able to shed some light on that. But yeah, Lockie O'Brien's been in reasonable form in the last couple of weeks, and I think he'll hold his position in the team without too much. Even Cottrell came on as a medical sub, and Jack Martin had to go off in the second half. He had an injury which forced him out of the game at half time. So even Cottrell got a fair bit of it in the second half. So he may very well hold his spot in the side as well next week. Unless George Hewitt's fit and ready to come back, I'm not quite sure which changes you would make, if any, out of that team tonight.
So if Cottrell plays again and then doesn't play well and we lose, what does everyone do? Gang up? And probably they do, right? This is how people are, supporters are. But this is the thing, right? Let's look at Cottrell and say, okay, well, he's had a good game. He's played well. How do we get his worst performance to be better?
Yeah.
How do we get not just him, all of his mates at that sort of,
the fringe player level. Yeah.
Correct. That's what it is, right? How do we get their worst performance to be at least, some
acceptable
sort of, That's what we need.
Even I thought even young Jordan Boyd did okay tonight as well. He didn't disgrace himself either. I mean, it really was a team effort. I think Michael Voss ought to be extremely pleased with that performance. And even though we sort of took the foot off the pedal in that last quarter a bit and let them come back at us a little bit, we still kicked a couple of goals there towards the end, and mainly through Charlie, I think. And, we still end up winning by 8 goals. It was a very comfortable victory. I think a few boys might have been making sure that they didn't get injured for next week. They got to go up to Sydney and play the GWS Giants, who copped a whacking against Geelong in Canberra yesterday it was. So
Yeah.
a bit like Adelaide, they'll be hurting from that and keen to make amends next week. So it's a bit of a challenge for us. I don't think, from memory, we've ever beaten GWS in Sydney.
No, we haven't.
So hopefully we can get rid of that, I guess, monkey off our back and have a victory next week. Can you imagine if we went into round 10 being 7 wins and 2 losses after 9 rounds?
Yeah, well, that would certainly set our season up, wouldn't it?
Then we'd be playing the Sydney Swans on a Friday night in some sort of top 8 blockbuster, really. I mean, Sydney lost surprisingly yesterday against the Gold Coast, but you would expect them to hit back and remain in the 8. So it'll be a worthy Friday night contest, I think, Carlton and Sydney in a couple of weeks' time.
I think so. I think you're right.
And then, of course, the week after we play Collingwood. So they also suffered a loss yesterday to Richmond. So they'll be keen to hit back.
No game between Carlton and Collingwood is easy, regardless of where they are on the ladder, as we all know.
Yes, indeed. Well, mate, where do you see Carlton setting their sights this season? We're currently in the top 4, and someone told me yesterday that Carlton has not been in the top 4 after 8 rounds since guess what year?
It'd have to be close to 2011, maybe, or even earlier than that.
Now, don't quote me on this because I haven't done the research. I'm going by what this person told me. So if I'm wrong, please correct me out there if I happen to get this wrong. But what he told me, it was in the year 2000. After 8 rounds, we were in the top 4. So that's 22 years ago. It's pretty comforting for most Carlton supporters right now to feel pretty good about themselves and pretty good about the team after 8 rounds, 6 wins and 2 losses. And in the top 4 on the ladder.
And that year 2000, we were, other than Essendon, we were basically the second best team in the competition there. We won't talk about how that year finished, but anyway.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing about that year was that I think, from memory, we ended up playing Essendon in around 20, I think it might have been.
That's right.
Around 20 blockbuster at the MCG. And at that stage, Essendon, I believe, had 19 consecutive wins. We'd had 13 consecutive wins. And in the first quarter of that game, we lost both Koutafidis and Bradley to very serious injuries, which basically wiped them out for the rest of the season. I think Bradley might have torn his hamstring, and I think Koutafidis might have done his knee. And we were just never the same after that. And we still made the preliminary final in 2000, but Essendon had our measure, if you recall. And I think then the following week, what happened there? I think
Melbourne made the
grand final. Yeah, because they knocked us off in the qualifying final. In fact,
correct. That was the upset.
2000.
Yeah.
But anyway, better not reckon. Go back over all of that old ground.
No, Brad Green had a great game, and
yes.
we actually got back in front with only a few minutes to go, and then Melbourne then jumped off over the top of us again.
I guess the point is if we hadn't have lost Cooter and Bradley, we may very well have given Essendon a bit of a run for their money, and if we had ended up playing them in the grand final, it might have been a bit closer than the Essendon Melbourne result.
We did beat them though when they were in fine form in Bradley's special 357th game, if you remember. That record-equaling game that he played.
When he beat
Bruce Doull's record.
Bruce Doull's 356, yeah.
That's right. Going back down memory lane, but that was a good game. We beat him by a kick, I think it was. 90,000 at the MCG.
Something like that. It was a fantastic game. But, so, look, the point is we're round 8, 6 wins, 2 losses. Yes, maybe a couple of those wins might have been a bit on the lucky side against Hawthorn and Port Adelaide, but we can only win, and we found the way to win on both of those occasions. And, as we keep saying, winners are grinners. Losers can please themselves, and here we are in the top 4 on the ladder. And with a winnable game against GWS and then a bit of a blockbuster against Sydney down here. So that should be a big game.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess that pretty much sums up the result today.
I another thing I wanted to raise with you, Carlton-related, Vince.
Sure.
The comments by Daniel Harford, I don't know if you saw them during the week, about the AFLW season and when it starts and what's happening.
I must admit I didn't catch much of that. I've been a little bit what's the right word? I'm not sure if it's incognito. Preoccupied, yeah. Yes. All week with a few personal matters, but I didn't notice those comments. I'm sorry. Maybe you can tell me and all of our viewers about them.
So, and good to get everyone's feedback, but essentially the AFL still hasn't shed any light on the salary cap for the AFLW season. Actually, what its official start date is. So all the coaches and administrators are going at the moment. Yeah. Now, if it is as we would expect it to be, commencing in August, well, you've only got 3.5 months to plan a season, to plan your financials, your players, your lists, who you can afford, who you can't, set the training programs up and everything else. It's not really a lot of time, is it?
Makes you wonder whether they're really treating this competition with the respect that they say they have for it. I guess actions speak louder than words, and if they're still keeping everyone in the dark over these very important issues, how serious are they about the AFLW competition? You've just got to ask yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, that they're going to say, oh, well, we're just moving it and it's in its evolutionary stages and we've got the new teams coming in. But come on, please.
Even those 4 new teams coming in. I mean, how are they supposed to plan for the year ahead in their very first seasons if they don't even have the answers to those crucial questions?
I don't know.
So Daniel Harford has blown the whistle on this effectively.
Yeah, now he's got his permanent 2-year extension. I think he feels more comfortable to speak up.
Yeah, it's amazing when you've got that 2-year extension on your contract, how all of a sudden you got your chest puffed out a bit more and a bit more confident about coming out and giving a few people a whack.
But I mean, it shouldn't just be him saying this, right? It should be all.
In fact, all of the clubs should be coming out in unison and screaming blue murder about this, because this is just leaving it very, very late. I mean, what are we now in May? And
mid-May,
they're talking about the season starting in August. I mean, it's just not much more than 3 months away. So, what's going on, AFL? What are you doing?
Agreed. It's a major issue. And a lot of those players are playing in winter competitions at the moment as well. So what do they do?
I think all of the clubs can do at the moment is probably assume that the salary cap is going to be essentially the same as it was last year. And if it ends up increasing, it won't decrease. But if it does increase, well, then they can maybe throw a few more crumbs at everybody on a pro rata basis.
Yeah, that's right.
How else can you do it?
Where's the talent going to come from too, right? That's the other question. There's more teams now. Yeah.
Imagine if this had happened in the men's competition.
No.
Yeah, there'd be journalists all over it, wouldn't there?
Definitely. And I can't see. I understand it's new, but I can't see how that's fair on these players. It's just not. And the clubs. It's not. The clubs are investing their own money too in this, and really they're not being supported.
Tell me something. What do you think, just to change subject a little here, what do you think of the nature of the competition in the men's competition at the moment, with on a weekly basis, players and even coaches and officials being ruled out of games because of COVID protocols. And, we even had one team saying that a virus went through it. They didn't say it was COVID, so I assume it wasn't COVID. It might have been, I don't know, it might have been gastro or something. But 6 players all of a sudden from, just trying to think, was it West Coast? Fremantle?
West Coast.
I think, and West Coast as well. I mean, even one of the other coaches came out and said, this is not fair. That the game should be deferred or delayed or postponed, etc. So what are your views on that?
Look, I think we're going to be treating COVID differently later in next year or the year after to what we're treating it now, I think. At the moment, I think it's very unfair. But from a commercial perspective, the AFL can't afford to be rescheduling games on this.
It's all about TV rights, no doubt.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't want to upset the apple cart with the TV stations and those paying all of that money for the TV rights by postponing games of football.
Well, what happens when those players they've got to get healthy again? That team sits out for 2 weeks, essentially. Those players have to return to train. Then they get cleared. So there's a couple more weeks there. If West Coast players got COVID as they did, and there was enough of them to make it impactful, I think that's a minimum 3 weeks for that team to be out, I would have thought. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
So then what happens?
I couldn't believe, here we are even. I mean, when was the last time you saw so many substitute coaches in the coaches box? I mean, we even had one today against us. We had Scotty Burns, I think, coaching Adelaide today because Matthew Nicks had to stand aside.
Yeah, that's correct.
I think Matthew Knights might have stood in for Adam Simpson at the Gabba last night against Brisbane.
That's right.
For the West Coast. So is it compromising? Is it compromising the competition? I mean, are some of these victories a bit hollow because of the fact that teams can't put their full strength team on?
I don't want to talk about betting, but if you looked at the odds, and I use the odds not about from the gambling side, but purely of the probability
indication of
yeah, right. Let's just look at it from that because
what would West Coast have been to win last night?
$17.
Write your own ticket.
Yeah,
but Brisbane would have been unbackable. It would have almost
$1.01, $1.02, I think it was.
Yeah. So
what?
I mean, really?
Yeah.
It's just no contest. It was absolutely no contest, really. I mean, West Coast probably put up a reasonable performance in all seriousness, considering all of the things that were up against them.
No,
but they still only kicked 4 goals for the game.
Yeah, that's right.
Mind you, so did GWS against Geelong. But I just think it's getting to the point now where if this keeps continuing for the whole season, it's almost a shallow victory, whoever wins the premiership.
Well, there are games that are question marks because essentially you played against a team that was not at half strength, really.
We've got another comment here from one of our viewers.
Yeah, Gina has said, just regarding the AFLW issue that we were just talking about, 4 new teams are getting free range on players. It's starting to kill the original clubs. It's a joke.
Coming in
and grabbing seasoned players.
Well, do you agree with that? I think any well-run club would have. Well, well-run clubs would have had their seasoned players who they value the most and probably reward the most signed up and off the market. But I think you've got to probably say in Carlton's case, there's a lot of disgruntled players who ended up looking for greener pastures by the looks of it. And
So-
it
so-
wasn't just this year; it was for the year before that and the year before that.
So there's no new. If you want to talk about players, A-grade players, there's no new A-grade players. The pool is what it is, but there's 4 new teams.
So it's
you've
going to be thinned out across the board, isn't it? Everyone's going to have a thinning out of their talent.
Yeah, so
which is going to compromise the standard of football played even more than what it is now.
Absolutely. So the pie's not growing. The pie's grown in teams, representation, but player talent, it hasn't. It's the same. So you've got 18 teams divided into the same number of talented players that you have now. How does that work? It doesn't. So they have to throw the kitchen sink at these, Matty Prasparkas type players to get them along. But the clubs have had them under their wing and have to have a retention policy where they can show that they can keep them. This is going to be the challenge. I want to look at your Melbournes and your other. Well, it happened with Adelaide.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was just going to say, Aaron Phillips, who's now won 3 flags with Adelaide, has now decided to go, and I think more for family historical reasons. I mean, her father, Greg Phillips, was a really staunch Port Adelaide icon, really.
He was a champion.
It doesn't surprise me at all that Aaron's decided to go to Port Adelaide in their first year in the competition.
There wasn't a Port Adelaide to play for.
No.
Right?
In fact, if Port Adelaide had been one of the original teams, she would never have played for the Crows. And
she would have wanted to wear the prison bars too.
Exactly right. So when you look at it, if Gina's comment was accurate, you would have seen this sort of exodus of players right across the board in all of the teams. But I don't see it happening anywhere near as badly as it has been at Carlton.
Yeah, look, I understand what Gina's trying to say. I'm not saying she's wrong, but I think
neither am I. But I think it's more accentuated at Carlton.
Yeah, Carlton's got a bigger problem than most teams, and what Carlton probably didn't have was the stability off field with their program to be able to find a way to keep those players. Nonetheless, the issue is there's more teams. There's no more better players.
No.
So what are we going to see?
There's just more openings. There's more openings and more opportunities for lesser players to actually get a gig now with the AFLW.
Yes.
That's what we're really saying.
Yes.
That
could be a positive, but they want to develop. These lesser players want to improve pretty quickly.
Yes, I do wonder about these competitions. In fact, I want to talk about another competition now just briefly, and that's the VFL, which, of course, is made up of predominantly AFL Victorian teams, but there's also some interstate teams in there with their own reserves team. And there is also some standalone clubs that have been part of the VFA /VFL for many, many years. And there's also a team from Queensland called the Southport Sharks, which is part of the Victorian Football League. I don't know why they've got the Southport Sharks in the Victorian Football League, or the Gold Coast Suns for that matter, or the Sydney Swans or anyone else. But anyway, I guess that's the way they've sort of compiled this whole conglomerate of teams together. Is the standard of VFL football good enough as a development ground for AFL footballers?
No, and I'll tell you why it's not. And I'm not an expert. I'll only give you my opinion. There are people closer to it in clubland that you would know that would probably provide more information.
Yeah.
If you're a decent player and you have got a job and you are probably slightly older than the 20-year-old still trying to make it in the AFL world.
Yes.
You're going to go and play in the country or the Eastern Footy League or the Eastern Football League get paid quite handsomely per game, still
Yep.
have your job, still have your career,
Yep.
and use your football skills that way.
Yep.
What they're doing with the VFL is you've obviously got listed players from clubs that are playing, but then you've also got top-up players, supplementary list players, if you like, that are playing. Now, they're not always the best players in those competitions. So they're staying and getting the cash at local level.
Yep.
But the younger ones that think, I want to get myself, some potential visibility with recruiters and so forth for a possible
exposure. Yeah.
Exposure, exactly. But the competition is then compromised because you've got those young players, you've got those other listed players, but really, I don't know. What is it? Is it a development ground? Is it a competition for the VFL was back in the day? We know it's not.
Yeah. I don't think that they necessarily play to win every time. Now, what I mean by that is, yes, of course, they're there to win. But the priority might be, we're gonna drop such and such a player back to the VFL team this week, and we're going to tell the coach, look, we want this guy played at in defence at full back from now on. Take the Liam Jones example. Remember when Liam Jones was struggling to get a game at Carlton? He was in the forward line and he wasn't really kicking goals and wasn't doing them in the reserves making a name for himself. Yeah. He was all over the place. He was a bit in no man's land. And all of a sudden, they said, look, we want to try this guy in defence. Now, okay, it happened to work out that time, and it probably extended his AFL career for quite a few years because of that opportunity to do that. But what I'm trying to say is that how they treat the AFL listed players and where they want them to play and how they want the VFL team to treat them could be contrary to what's best for the VFL team to win the game.
Or the competition. It's a science. Vince, you're 100% right. It's a science experiment. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Go there. Let's do a clinical trial on how you play.
It's not a priority. This is what I'm trying to say. It's not a massive priority for an AFL club's VFL team to be winning every week or to win the premiership or to make the finals or anything like that. Now, at the moment, for example, Carlton's VFL team seems to be going along quite well, and that might be a reflection of how well our seniors are going in and how we've built up our depth, and that's fantastic. But it doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're going to be focusing on just winning games of football every week in the VFL.
No, and do you know what? I think most supporters couldn't give a continental about it either, to be frank. They only care when there's nothing to do in September. Their team didn't make the finals, and they want to watch the VFL team play in the finals because they want something to hang on to. But during the year, it's not really. There's a few, absolute diehards that'll go watch it. But even them, they're not really attached to the result because they see what you're telling me, right? They'll see that
they're playing out in front of their own eyes.
Yeah, you're playing players in positions that often senior or listed players haven't deserved a game in the VFL. They've been that poorly out of form, but they've had to be played.
And by the way, Steve, I've got to make mention that Carlton's VFL team yesterday went down to the Frankston Oval to play Frankston.
Oh, yeah.
And they kept Frankston to 1 goal in the first quarter, 1 goal in the second quarter, 1 goal in the third quarter. And I think the scores were Frankston 3 goals, 8. Look, I could have the number of points wrong there somewhere, but I think it was something like 3 goals, 8 to Carlton's 11 goals, 8. And we were 8 goals in front at 3/4 time. And somehow we managed to lose the game. I can't believe it. 7 points, I think we lost the game by in the end. Frankston kicked something like 10 goals in the last quarter, I think, or 9 or 10 goals in the last quarter, and absolutely ran all over the top of us. I cannot believe that a team could be 8 goals in front at three-quarter time and lose.
Have you been to Frankston?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I have too, many a time. The wind, if the wind's blowing a certain way, it's literally a 6 or 7 goal breeze. However, I don't think that was the case. And gee, the locals hate the AFL teams, don't they?
They certainly do. They love beating
pretty
them,
rough and ready. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that the 21st Century Dance Club would have been rocking there last night. Oh, dear. Anyway, we love all of you down there in Frankston.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah. Great part of the world.
The most confusing day down in Frankston all year is Father's Day, but anyway, I won't go into that. Now, listen, only kidding, everyone. Don't worry. Only mucking around. Now, TV rights. I know that this is a topic that's close to your heart, and you wanted to discuss this a little bit tonight on our show.
Yeah, so they've done some modelling, and look, there's different people saying different things, but essentially, if Paramount were to get the AFL rights, they'd need to get 3 million subscribers as a result just to break even for that.
Wow.
And that would be, those subscribers would have to stay for 9 months.
Yep.
So that's what the AFL are looking for at this point in time. It's big money. I think we talked about it last time. It's that big final deal that Gillen can fly off into the sunset with his bonus for. And this is a big issue that people probably don't believe is a big enough issue yet until later when they sign with whoever they sign with, and you go to try and watch your team play and what you'll have to do to
when is the next broadcast deal due? Is it at the end of this year?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
So is there a prospect that maybe free-to-air television could be a thing of the past as a result of this deal?
So there's the without going to politics, but the anti-siphoning laws, which the government basically says there's a certain amount of free-to-air sport you must show on TV to the public. Yeah. So I believe I'm not sure the number of games that would mean from an AFL perspective. So I don't think you'll ever get zero. It won't just be all paid. However, I think your problem is that could go down to 3 games, and these technology platforms now, they rely on people watching it on their mobile phone or having high-speed internet to be able to do that at home.
Yeah,
it makes life challenging for people who aren't as digitally savvy as those ones, and will need to pay for these streaming services. That's going to be the hard part for them. So already there's a fair bit of noise about just members that have digital tickets versus those physical tickets to get into games.
Well, that's another. I think that ties in, doesn't it? I mean, there are so many people who are, I guess, in the sort of middle age to old age bracket that are I guess, resisting and rejecting, in some cases, the whole concept of having to go online to book your tickets and book your seat and all the rest of it. At the most, they might ask their daughters or sons or even grandchildren to do it for them. But I think that's part of the reason why some of the crowds are actually down.
Couldn't agree more.
You know, a lot of people have been attacking the Melbourne football. Oh, hang on. Sorry about that. Something just fell. Let's just start that again. A lot of people have been attacking Melbourne for having poor crowds this year, seeing they won the flag and, you know, they're absolutely flying, and why aren't the Melbourne supporters going out to watch games and all that? Traditionally, they have a lot of supporters in that middle-age to old-age bracket, and that's all I can put it down to. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are just rejecting the whole having to go online and book tickets and wait till the day, you know, the appropriate day to do that and all the rest of it. So Yeah, I just can't help but feel that they've made life harder for a lot of people who are not as tech savvy, and that's resulting in compromised crowds.
I agree.
Maybe the AFL doesn't care about them, and eventually they'll say, "Oh well, these people will all eventually go away and die off, and we'll just go after the younger generation." But I don't think that that's a wise strategy myself.
That is exactly right, and I would agree with you. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the same thing.
Mm. Yeah. So I think Carlton's crowds have been pretty healthy this year, though. All the same.
Yeah, they have been.
Yeah.
They've been drawn at the MCG with some good games and good time slots, which has also helped them. But yeah, we've been pretty fortunate. Marvel Stadium, not as good a crowds, but yeah, that may improve.
I'm not sure what the crowd was today. I must say, if anyone out there knows and can maybe send us a note to let us know what the crowd was at Marvel Stadium today for the Carlton Adelaide game, that'd be great. Of course, today was Mother's Day, or is Mother's Day, so a big shout out to all the mums out there. But that would have compromised some people in their ability to get down to watch the game, even though it was a 4:40 start. And also, I'll be interested to see what the Melbourne crowd was, because they started at 1:10. So that really does interfere with your Mother's Day lunch, doesn't it? I mean, some people might say, well, if you're a Melbourne supporter, take mum to the footy and go and watch your favourite team who haven't been this good for nearly 60 years, and let her enjoy a day out at the football. And but it's not quite the same, isn't it? And a lot of families just get together around the dining room table and enjoy Mother's Day with their mums.
That's right. Yeah, I would agree.
I wouldn't mind betting that even Melbourne and St Kilda. Actually, I must say, in today's day and age, where the AFL is often, scheduling matches at short notice and all that sort of thing, why couldn't they have rescheduled the Melbourne St Kilda game? To be scheduling that on Mother's Day at 10 minutes past 1, I don't think that was a wise choice. Even if they had just shifted it to 3:20 p.m. instead of 1:10. What would that have hurt?
It would have helped. My view, though, you have to have a product on the TV at a certain time. That's
the 3:20 game on a Sunday is usually the free-to-air game.
Yeah,
and the 10 past 1 game is Foxtel.
Yeah, that 3:20 game didn't go. There wasn't a free-to-air game because of
the Thursday night game.
The Thursday night game. That's right. And this comes back to the TV rights again, doesn't it?
Yep, it sure does. See, I mean, this is the point. I mean, for Melbourne and St Kilda, who I think were first and fourth on the ladder before the game, for that not to be a free-to-air game, blockbuster on Channel 7, I think that was a crying shame.
Yes, I could not agree more. It's just, what do we do?
What do you do? Well, looks like there's a very interesting ladder starting to take shape. And, of course, the Demons are still incredibly powerful. Have won all 8 matches so far. And the next 2 games Melbourne play are against the 2 bottom sides on the ladder, West Coast and then North Melbourne. So it's, in all likelihood, it's going to be 10 and 10. Played 10 matches and won 10 matches. Then they come up against Fremantle at the MCG. And I think that's going to be the biggest test for Melbourne, assuming the next couple of weeks they get past those 2 lowly teams. So without being disrespectful to them, you'd expect Melbourne to beat them. And then, of course, you've got the teams like Fremantle and Brisbane, who are both 7-1 and just flying at the moment. Brisbane, though, had another key attacking player go down in Daniel McStay. So that's 2 in 2 weeks now. Joe Danaher went down last week. He'll be out for 6 to 8 weeks. And now Daniel McStay might have injured his ankle badly. So the pressure's on to bring back Eric Hipwood pretty much straight away. And I believe he's almost due to come back. So it'll be interesting to see whether they bring him straight in or whether they give him a run or two in the lower leagues just to get him back into match fitness.
You're right. There's a lot of pressure on Hipwood now to sort of hold up the
but
forward
he's coming
line.
he's coming back from an ACL, so you wouldn't want to rush him back, and all of a sudden, he goes down as well because he's been rushed back in, and then all three of them are out.
Yeah, he did that in the finals from memory, I think. Well, close enough to the finals last year.
I think you'll find it was before that. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, well before that. Yeah. But anyway, Brisbane's still travelling along nicely. Fremantle have been tremendous. I think they've been pretty much as impressive as Melbourne, really.
I agree with that.
Some of their victories have been sensational. Absolutely smashed North Melbourne there on Friday night. Was it actually a Thursday night that we had this week? I'm not sure. I think we had 2 Friday night games.
There were two Friday nights. Yeah, the Port Adelaide Bulldogs. Yeah.
Port Adelaide Bulldogs, and then the Fremantle North Melbourne was after that, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, see, the Richmond Collingwood game was on Saturday afternoon, and I think that was a far better time slot for a match of that nature.
I loved seeing, albeit they're not my favourite teams, nor would they be many people watching this broadcast's favourite teams.
No, of course.
I love seeing the two traditional teams in a day game at the MCG.
Richmond, Collingwood, Carlton, Essendon, etc., etc.
Yeah,
but we're playing Essendon, of course, but we're playing them on a Friday night this year because it's their 150th anniversary, and apparently they're going to have a Friday night blockbuster time slot against us. So they also performed very well last night and finally had a good win over Hawthorn and came home like a train, kicking 8 goals in the last quarter, I think.
Yeah.
So so they've been impressive. Geelong, as always, what is it about Geelong that they always seem to be up there in that top 8? Doesn't matter what happens. It's been 15 years since I think I've seen them out of the 8.
Absolutely. It's just whether they can go the next step. As good as their consistency's been, it's about can they go the next step.
Indeed. And interesting that Richmond have now, with that victory over Collingwood yesterday, have snuck back into the 8. So they're not finished with yet.
No.
Just when everyone thought their dynasty was over, Dustin Martin comes back into the team and all of a sudden there's a bit more enthusiasm around the place.
Yeah, there are other players that have lifted as well. There's a combination of all of those. They're 2 games behind Carlton at the moment. So so there's still a bit of breathing space there for us at the moment.
Would you say that at the bottom of the ladder, the prospect of finals is almost shot? I'd say at least for West Coast and North for sure, with only 1 win and 7 losses after 8 rounds, and probably the 2 teams above them too, GWS and Essendon. Even though Essendon had that victory, they've still only that was only their second victory for the year.
GWS need to be a miracle. They're good, potentially good enough to win home games. I don't think they will. It's probably Port Adelaide and the Bulldogs would be the teams, and Hawthorn and Collingwood. They're the teams that are fighting for those bottom couple of spots, I think.
Can't see Gold Coast making it, even though they had a very impressive win over Sydney. I don't know. They're just too inconsistent for me.
Well, with the way they played against us, when they're on, they're on. They're good players, are stars in their own right. Yeah. But it's disappointing.
Yeah. Who do you see as being the coaches? Who do you see as being the coaches that will be in the firing line, if you like? And if you're prepared to make the call now, if you had to predict which coaches would lose their jobs at the end of the year based on current ladder position, would you say Leon Cameron's in trouble at GWS, seeing that they've decided, club and coach, to postpone all negotiations until the end of the year? Isn't that normally an indication that the club's starting to doubt and hesitate about the future of the coach that they have at the moment?
He has to be, and that's the length of tenure he's had there too, right? He's had plenty of opportunity
to get it right, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And what about the other one there, Stuart Jewett, Gold Coast? Would you say that if they don't make finals, he's also in trouble?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. What about if Port Adelaide don't make the finals? Is Ken Hinkley someone who could make the move, potentially even to the Gold Coast?
So, can he coach?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think he can coach. Everyone's got their own opinions. Is David Koch and the board there potentially trigger happy and love to put pressure on him through the media and set the standards of their club and what they expect the Port Adelaide way? They do, and I wouldn't get rid of Hinkley, but
the thing is this is his 10th season. He has never been past a preliminary final, which I think they had last year, and they had it in his first year, I think, from memory, when they almost knocked over Hawthorn in 2013. I think they came within a kick. I think they might have lost that one by 4 or 5 points. But anyway, and then last year they were expected to beat the Western Bulldogs playing at the Adelaide Oval, and they really botched it badly. And the Bulldogs thrashed them in the preliminary final. That, I think, was the wake-up call that this side, Port Adelaide, are suspect when it really matters. When the season is on the line, in finals, they often go to water and leave their fans disappointed. So I think if Hinkley can't get Port Adelaide back into finals, I know it's a big ask because they got off to such a slow start. I think losing their first 5 games, but they've won their last 3 now, starting to show some form. It is possible that they could easily make the finals now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If they keep that running, but if he manages to fail in getting them to the top 8, I think he could end up seeing a change at Port Adelaide. And if Hinkley wants to continue coaching, I think the opportunity might open up at Gold Coast.
Look, he's a known coach. He's got the ability to get a group of players together and play for him. He's got the experience for sure, and he was from there originally.
Any other coaches you think might be in the firing line if they don't make finals? You wouldn't say that,
No, I think
Damien Hardwick's not going to be replaced at Richmond anytime soon.
No.
Obviously, Collingwood's got a brand new coach. He's doing a pretty good job, Craig McRae, you'd have to say. It's those coaches of the teams that are down to 3 wins and 5 losses or worse. They're the ones that we're looking at, isn't it?
Absolutely. Some of those maybe next year if they don't improve, for sure. But maybe this year, depending on what the boards choose to do. We've got a comment here.
Brandon Brevalacqua from the Melbourne Coffee Roasting Company. Great to see you again, Brandon. What have we got? Hey, guys, who comes in for Jack Martin? Well, that's a good question. He was subbed off today. Probably going to be injured for the next week or 2, maybe more. Do we give Motlop a go or give Dow a game for the first time this year? Well, that's a good question. Or anyone else for that matter. What do you think, Steve? Who would you bring in?
Dow, depends what you're trying to get out of it. Will Dow kick goals? Probably not. But is he a really good link-up player and a good player around the middle of the ground? Yes. Motlop, that's a development player that you've really got to get games into. Is now the time? Good question.
Well, if you're looking to replace like for like, Jack Martin is someone you'd probably refer to as a
he's a half forward.
Not a small forward, but a higher half forward link-up player. Does play more forward than midfield. So if you bring in Motlop, he's more of a small forward type, a bit like a Durden or an Owies. But then again, maybe it is time to give someone like Jesse Motlop a go. Our only draft pick from last year, only main draft pick. Dow, all depends on how he went in the VFL. I'm not sure about how he went yesterday, but I think he does deserve an opportunity at some point, Paddy Dow.
Oh yeah, I think I think he's been knocking on the door. Definitely.
And don't forget, you got George Hewitt. So it might end up being something as simple as out Martin, in Hewitt.
Yep.
And it might be that. They might not bring in Jesse Motlop or Paddy Dow for that matter. I reckon they'll be pretty disappointed in the VFL team because they got absolutely smashed, from what I hear, in the clearances in that last quarter. They just got absolutely dominated by Frankston. So if you're going to elevate someone after a performance like that, in fact, the player that they reckon was probably the most impressive for Carlton on the day was a returning player who hasn't played for a long, long time. I'm talking about Caleb Marchbank. Great to see him get through the game.
Yeah, that's good. That's good news.
Anyway, there you go. Unless there's anything else you want to bring up, Steve?
No, I think we've
pretty
covered
much hit 9 o'clock, so I think we'll let everyone get an earlier night tonight. Thanks very much for joining us, everyone out there, and I hope you enjoyed the program. We'll be back next Sunday night for another riveting hour with the one and only Stephen Khatib and myself, Vince Loccisano. And until next Sunday night, enjoy the victory, enjoy the spoils that Carlton are putting us through at the moment. It's a great feeling being a Carlton supporter, and let's hope it continues next Sunday afternoon when we take on the GWS Giants at Giants Stadium there in Western Sydney. Until then, go Blues.